Hi, everybody. My name's Andriy, and I'm here with Amanda. We are members of Concerned Students of Ontario, and we're here to welcome you to our new CSONT podcast. We are the hosts of this show, and we're going to go through quick introductions of ourselves and our organization. So, Amanda, why don't you go ahead and begin with an introduction of yourself first?
Yeah, so my name is Amanda Mihailos. I am a first-year student at the University of Toronto, currently studying life sciences and social sciences. At CSONT, I am the UFT student rep, and I also try to get involved in as many other ways as I can.
Perfect. And I am a York University graduate. I graduated just last April in 2021. I guess that's last year now. And I am now a pre-med student, so I'm applying to medical schools and trying to gain admission this year. So I'm going through that process. And I'm also a York University representative as well, student rep, just like you, but for the University of York. And today we are going to discuss what CSONT is all about. So what is CSONT to you?
Yeah, so CSONT is a group or organization of students, staff, faculty at several universities and colleges across Ontario that are actively trying to oppose the vaccine mandates that have been implemented by these schools that are affecting our education or affecting our jobs. And pretty much ending these mandates is our top priority, and it's our main goal of this organization. And we are also just a community of like-minded individuals that have, been there for each other over the last few months. It's been a difficult few months. So it's nice to have that group of people that are kind of going through the same things, that can help each other, give advice to each other. Yeah, that's pretty much what CSONT is all about.
Yeah, a nice supportive community of like-minded people who, let's go over like-minded people, what we mean by that.
Well, I think that anybody who, vaccinated or not vaccinated, anybody who is opposed to these restrictions and mandates that are being put in place by our schools, by our government, I guess that is what anybody who is opposed to that, I guess, can be considered a like-minded.
Yeah, I would say in short, we value personal liberty, and we value personal choice rather than enforcement and coercion.
Yes.
Okay, so before we dive further into that, let's talk about the podcast, why we created it, and what's the purpose of the podcast. Because, there's a lot of things going on in Ontario, especially at our schools, which is exactly why we're here. But we're also going to be talking about the world in general and the state of the world and the Western society more in particular. So we're going to be discussing those details. And in terms of the podcast, what do you think is the main purpose that we started this whole thing?
I think it's to inform people, to spread awareness, I guess, about things that are going on. A lot of what we're probably going to talk about is either censored or, not really shown on any sort of mainstream media or large media platforms. And a lot of people that, unless they're looking for this information, they don't know about it. And even what's going on with the schools, a lot of people don't, students, staff, parents, people, they have no idea what's going on. They don't realize that students are being kicked out. They don't realize that people are losing their jobs. I think all of that, it's in this podcast, the main goal is to really inform those people and also share personal stories and get people to realize that everything that's being put in place is really harming people. It's really affecting people, and to share our stories so that people can hear that. Maybe we can get people to change their perspectives a little bit on what's going on, and to think beyond what they're just being told to think.
Yeah, because you're told to think one way and one way only. And like you said, a lot of the information is censored, right? So the main goal of the podcast is to kind of spread the message and spread hope to those who doubt the main narrative and they're kind of on the fence. They have no idea what to think because they're not allowed to think for themselves. And so we're here to provide that safe environment for people to speak freely about their thoughts and what they think about the mandates, what they think about mask wearing, what they think about the science, because science progresses when it is discussed, when there's two sides to it. Yes.
I think healthy conversation about these topics is so important. And I feel like that's what we're missing right now. When these topics are brought up, most of the time it's just ends up being a debate or it ends up being an argument, one side versus the other. And I think to hear different perspectives and different opinions and different stories, it's really important to, I guess, like you said, developing, science and all of that comes from questioning and you can't just hear one thing and then just believe it.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a great chance to have that healthy discussion about all these topics that we can't really talk about.
Yeah. I mean, in university, we have the majority of the university population, the student population, is just kids out of high school, right? Like yourself, this is your first year and you're coming out of high school, and it is difficult to step out of line. It's difficult to go against the main narrative, against the authority, even though you may think that that's the right thing to do. But it's hard because you're young and you've got your peers you've got to listen to, and you've got to fit into your social circle. And so the main thing here is that we are able to provide a better environment, so to speak, for you, because you feel safe about discussing your own beliefs and your own opinions about this. And you may have other opinions than your peers, and that's okay. That's normal. You should have that, and you should not be afraid to speak about it.
No, it should be encouraged.
It should be encouraged. That's right. So that's what we're here for. That's the main reason for this podcast. We plan on doing lots of interviews with the students that are part of our organization and with others who would like to join us and have healthy conversations about these topics, because they're needed. This is all brand new for everybody. We've never been in a situation like this, and it's needed to be discussed.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and now let's get back to CSONT and our organization, what it's all about. I mean, we've mentioned that we are students, faculty, staff that are resisting the mandates, because that's our main goal, is to create an environment where you may choose what you want to do about your body. You may choose where you want to study, what you want to study, and have the freedom to do that without having to undergo medical procedures.
Yep.
So that's kind of the main thing we have going on at CSONT. The main goal of the organization is to end the mandates. So we live in a free and democratic society, the one that we were born into. Because, I mean, your rights are not handed to you by the government.
Yeah.
Your rights are not going to be given for ransom.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people believe that by giving up all their rights, they're just going to get them back at some point. Like, I'll just keep doing this and this and complying because the government will reward us for listening, and and then everything is going to go back to normal, and it's going to be this perfect world. And
fairy tale.
Yeah, no, that's not realistic at all.
Yeah, that's not, I mean, your rights are given to you at birth. You are born, these are birthrights, to be free, to decide for yourself what's going into your body, what you're going to wear, how you're going to dress, and how you're going to protect yourself and your family. That all goes into being an adult. I mean, when you grow up, you should make your own informed decisions about your health, and it should not be somebody on the television. It should not be somebody part of a university institution checking for your medical information. So that's what we're doing at CSONT, and let's discuss the actions that we're taking, because you mentioned that we are an action-based group. And so let's discuss the actions that we have taken in order to oppose these mandates and to create a free and democratic society around universities.
Yeah, so I think that our main form of action is non-compliance. And by that, I mean, if you are told you're not allowed to go to campus, but you've paid for your classes and, you paid your tuition, you have the right, you should go to class. And I think that's a really important part of all this, is just still showing up to class, still doing the things that they tell you not to, that you have the right to do, especially when you're paying for it. Yeah. And it might be uncomfortable for some people, but I think it's a great way of, again, making some noise and creating some awareness, and taking back what's ours. We also, we do events, in-person events at the different campuses that we have student reps at. And I think that's a great way of connecting with other students and staff, and even just members of the public that are walking by, and just having those healthy discussions and talking about, different points of view on the mandates and things like that. I think it's very important to do that in person and not always behind a screen. And, I really like the events that we do. I feel like even if it isn't so widespread as, the internet or doing things on social media, you really connect with some students and potentially can change some perspectives on things. And we also try to maintain our social media presence and doing things like this podcast and other interviews. I think those are all the things that we're kind of doing.
Yeah, so let's discuss these in-person events, because a lot of people might believe in-person events meaning like a protest or something along those, like a rally. But typically our in-person events are what we call them change my mind events. Yeah. You know how like the person sits on the table, they have like change my mind, and they have like some sort of offensive title, so to speak. And that's kind of what we bring to the table. Except, I mean, we don't have a table at this point because it's winter, and when we're out on campus, we just stand up with our signs here. And the people on campus are kind of intrigued. They have no idea what we represent, because the sign just kind of says concerned. What are you concerned about? And we get into a conversation. So this is all about creating conversation, and like you mentioned, in person. And why is it important to do it in person and not over social media?
I feel like a lot of people can hide behind, a screen, behind social media. And I think doing them in person really forces people to have those discussions and actually listening to the other person. I feel like online, it ends up just being, if you get into a discussion with someone, it ends up being like debate and arguments. When it's in person, I feel like it's a little bit more, I don't know, like
more human.
Yes, authentic maybe. And a lot of people can say things that they don't, I guess, that they wouldn't say in person. They say online. They feel like they can,
Well, yeah.
Right?
They have less fear of doing that.
Yeah, so when you ask someone at a school that's walking by, oh, do you agree with, what's your opinion on vaccine mandates? Do you think people should, not be allowed to go to school? Well, they won't be as, I guess, mean. I don't know.
They'll try to be more nice to you.
Maybe they'll actually try and think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's different. I think it's different, and I think it's you get a lot of people that don't even know what's going on. Yeah. And there's so many people that have no idea. How do you feel about students getting kicked out and unenrolled from the classes? And they're like,
what?
What? I didn't know that was happening. So you make good connections with people, and it's nice, especially over the last 2 years, it's nice seeing people face to face as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the unenrollment in just a second here, but there's a couple of things I wanted to add about the in-person things and why we do things in person, why we emphasize doing that in person. And besides just the Change My Mind events, I mean, we meet up in person as much as we can throughout the week, just getting people together, whoever lives in a close remote area, just so we can have a social function, we can be human. And the whole thing was that during this time, during the last 2 years, it's been dehumanizing. We cannot see each other, you cannot shake hands, you cannot hug people. And that's just been very dehumanizing, and you lose touch with people. And all of those mental illnesses, right? Like your stress levels rise, depression, all of those things rise because human contact is a need. It is one of our core basic human needs that need to be fulfilled, just like anything else, like eating and sleeping, right? And so all of that has been taken away from us, and it's only handed to us during the summer when we have no lockdowns. And even then, people are skeptical of shaking your hand, right? Because it's just been so dehumanizing. And so we're trying to normalize being a human being.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the entire principle behind it, because of course we can announce things online, and that's very easy to do, just sit on your couch. But what's important is when you get outside and you speak to a person, you see the language they use, you see their tone, you hear their tone, you see their body language that they express. Are they afraid? Are they confident? Right? You can sense those things, and we just don't get the same thing on social media. So I think it's important to do these things in person, online as well, but we emphasize in-person events for that particular reason.
I think the in-person events that we do, as well as the other kind of gatherings that we have within CSONT that we do, I think they're so important. I know for myself, I'm not sure about you, but they've helped me, especially when you feel alone, you feel like you're the only one. It's really easy to feel that way online, like when you're not in contact or in person, face to face with people that actually agree with you or that are like-minded. And I think that having these gatherings and these events in person, it's really helped my confidence when it comes to, standing up for what I believe in and being more vocal about it and come out of my shell a little bit. It's really helped me, and I'm sure it's helped others as well. I think that's just so important, especially during the last, few months.
So let's give a little timeline in terms of our organization. The organization began in August. You joined pretty early. You were in September, right?
I think it was end of September.
End of September, yeah. And so tell me, how do you feel, how did you feel about the entire thing and your personal health before you joined the organization up until now? Because before, there was limited human contact. There was limited interactions with like-minded people.
Yes.
So give that compare contrast.
Yeah. So in the end of the summer, beginning of the fall term, it's my first year at university. I'm already nervous. It's already a big change. I moved to an apartment downtown. And this was kind of right when the mandates started really affecting my education, and I was freaking out. I had no idea what I was going to do, and it was really stressful for me, and I feel like I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I was scared to tell people that this is what I was going through. I was online for the most part because I also changed some of my classes around to be online, so I didn't have to. It was easier that way.
Yeah.
And I feel like all those things combined, I felt so alone, and it was a really, really hard time for me. And then I kind of stumbled across CSONT at I think it was at some kind of rally in September. It's a funny story.
Tell me about
part of a different group that wasn't really doing much. I was never really active on it, and somebody from that group wanted to meet at this rally. And I thought, I should probably start meeting with more people that are like-minded. Maybe it'll help me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I agreed to meet up at this rally, and then there was Josephine, who is the founder of CSONT. She was there with her sign, and yes, this one here. And yeah, and then the people that I was there with, or that I was meeting up with, they were also part of CSONT, and so then I got added to the group. And for a while, I didn't really, wasn't really involved. I just felt a little better that I was, there was a few, like about 100 students, I guess, at the time. Yeah, that were going through the same thing as me, so it made me feel better. But I wasn't too involved. I was still really struggling. Still felt really alone. Mm-hmm. I'm living with 3 other girls, so I was really scared to tell them everything that was going on because I wasn't sure what their opinion was. Mm-hmm. And I just felt really alone. And then I was like, enough is enough. I'm going to, enough is enough. I'm done being depressed. I need to get more involved. So yeah, and then I started getting a little more involved with Concerned Students of Ontario, going to some events, meeting some people, and it made me feel so great. Like really, I'm so happy about it.
So getting more involved made you feel more confident.
100%. Like it made me feel more confident to speak up and to be more vocal and not to not be scared what people think. Mm-hmm. Just knowing that I'm not crazy, I guess, and that there's other people that have the same views as me, it really helped with that confidence. Mm-hmm. It really did.
Yeah, there's a famous quote that states that inaction breeds fear and doubt, but action breeds confidence and courage.
Very, very true.
And so the more you take action, the more confident you get, and then you take more action, then it's a continuous cycle. But if you don't take action, inaction breeds fear and doubt. So you continuously go into the other loop.
Yes.
And so you kind of escaped that loop of inaction and fear and doubt, and you entered into the confidence loop with taking action.
Yeah, I would say for that first month in September, there were times where I would be like freaking out. I'm like, tomorrow I'm just going to go get it. I'm going to go get it. Enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I'm the only one. This and that. Like it was really tough. And mm-hmm. I'm sure everybody that's in this situation has felt that at some point or another. But yeah, I'm so grateful that I came across this. It's really helped.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So that is how you joined the organization. And Josephine, you mentioned Josie mm-hmm. That you met at the event. Josephine is the founder of the organization, and her and Bethany Brown, who's the student leader, they wrote up our philosophy statement. So mm-hmm. since we are talking about CSON and how the organization became alive, we're going to go over the statement, the philosophy statement, and it's really just going to put a light on what we've been talking about and solidify the points and discuss exactly what we stand for and what we are doing in terms of these mandates. So why don't you go ahead and read the first part here, and I'll read the rest, okay?
Okay, so we at Concerned Students of Ontario are actively seeking the end of Ontario's Ministry of Colleges and Universities vaccination mandate and the related policies put forth by our post-secondary institutions. To achieve this end together, we must hold ourselves to strong principles and convictions in our fight for what is right. We want to ensure that everyone understands our collective philosophy so that we can work together efficiently, effectively, and persistently. This philosophy stands true for all of our members, but never limits those who may have strayed from this philosophy in the past. We hope everyone, including students, staff, faculty, and their supportive families, will uphold this philosophy in our fight ahead.
Awesome. Okay, and then so the official statement of philosophy by CSONT says, we understand the acceptance of accommodations or exemptions is an abandonment of what we're fighting for. This fight is bigger than our personal situations, and there's no escaping the long-term consequences of short-term thinking against these issues we seek to solve. The acceptance of accommodations, exemptions, testing, educational videos, face coverings, academic accommodations, etc., indicates that we accept the premise of being second-class citizens. We must all remember we do not need permission or special treatment to exist and partake in society. Furthermore, accommodations mean that we accept the premise that we are ill and do not know nor understand our own bodies and minds. Contrary to what our governments, medical professionals, businesses, schools, and even our complicit neighbors would have us believe, we do know our bodies better than anyone else. We must not leave what happens to us in their hands. So there's a couple of really cool points that I wanted to touch upon and further discuss. The first one that you read in the first part, it states that this philosophy stands true for all of our members, but never limits those who may have strayed from this philosophy in the past.
Yes. So basically, I mean, I guess that for like that statement means that, we, for any of the people, anybody that we, oh my God, I messed up.
So in terms of the statement here, there are many people who have been involved with partaking in the narrative, right? They believed in the narrative. They were into the narrative. They were all about, protecting society, and I'm going to comply. I'm going to do what's needed because I want to travel, because I want to do this thing, that thing, that thing. However, over time, they, of course, come with a visceral moment, and they end up realizing what's going on, and they end up being, on the fence and on the other side. I mean, I believed into the narrative, and I was into the narrative for the first couple of months. And I mean, a lot of the things I didn't agree with, but I just thought the politicians were stupid, and they just didn't know what they were doing. Instead of they're just actually trying to take my freedoms away. They're actually trying to coerce me. That never came across until I had that visceral moment of like, oh my God, this is actually terrible, and this is actually what they're doing. And so what this philosophy stands for is that we accept everybody, whether or not you were into the narrative in the past, or if you have been vaccinated or not. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. What matters is what you're going to do now and what you're going to do in the future. And your past is not significant from what you can do and partake for the organization and our collective goal. So that's what I wanted to touch upon. Another thing in the statement, the philosophy statement, is that we mentioned about the exemptions. So let's discuss exemptions, because we believe that it is an abandonment of what we're fighting for. And it is a way of compliance. It is a way of basically saying we are second-class citizens.
Yeah, I mean, accepting accommodations, it's basically, you're still giving power to the institution. I mean, or exemptions.
Accommodations or exemptions,
yeah. And they can take that away from you. It's basically, like they say in here, it's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. Yes, it may work for you right now for a very short period of time, but it doesn't change anything in terms of the future and what's going to happen in the future. I mean, an exemption is, first of all, I know very few people who've had exemptions accepted. Yeah. For the most part, they're declining them. Even medical exemptions, they're being declined. But even if they happen to be accepted by the school or the college or any other workplace or anything, I mean, they can just, as easily as they gave it to you, they can take that away. I know someone who had an exemption accepted for the first term, and then the school basically said, okay, it's not valid anymore for the second term now, and then now you have to resubmit it. Mm-hmm. Then it was declined, and now what? What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it solves anything. It solves your short-term problem right now, which may be, working or your education, but where does that take us 6 months from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, if we continue to just keep complying.
Yeah. Yes. And I mean, you are at the mercy of the government or the organization or the school that you're submitting the exemption to, because it is up to them to let you into society. It is up to them to give you education. And like it says here, we do not need to prove that we know our bodies. We do not need to prove that we are healthy. And that's the whole thing about this, is that there is an assumption that those who do not comply are ill, they spread disease, and therefore they need an exemption, they need accommodations. But that's the whole premise here that they're going for, is they're not looking at what the bigger picture. Like you mentioned, it is a short-term thinking against this long-term problem, because it's going to take months and months and years and who knows how long, right? We don't have all the answers of how to defeat this. But the main thing we know for sure is that you're not going to win by getting exemptions, and you're not going to win by complying.
Yeah.
You do not overcome bullying by complying. You do not overcome bullying by just simply submitting to the bully, even if it's the slightest, right? The only time you beat bullying is when somebody else meaner and stronger comes along and tells the bully to stop doing that, right? And then the bully backs off. And that's what's part of our philosophy, is that we need to stand firm on our ground that we are healthy. If you are not symptomatic, if you feel well, if you're not going to be spreading disease. Some people have natural immunity and they have already had COVID, right? And so why are you so worried about my health if I already survived the disease, and you're so worried about me entering school not being vaccinated? So, I mean, the entire premise is held upon forcing you into compliance. And that's what it goes around for. So, and the next thing is that was mentioned here. It says, we do not need permission or special treatment to exist and partake in society. So
yeah, I mean that's why we live in Canada, right? I always thought of Canada and where we live being, the best place in the world to live, and anybody can, do as they please and create their own opportunities for themselves, and there's an abundance of opportunity and freedom here. But slowly, that's starting to be taken away. And because, our government is basically saying, okay, you can go here, but you can't, and you can do this, and you can't. And they're, people are waiting for the government to let them do certain things and give them that permission to, participate in certain aspects of society. Okay, if I do this, they're going to now let me go to this restaurant. And now if I do this, they're going to finally let me open my business. And if I do this, they're going to let me go to school. And that's not what...
It's not what Canada stands for.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
I mean, it's that American dream. It doesn't only apply to America, the United States. It also applies here in Canada, at least it did before COVID, is that as long as you work hard, it doesn't matter about your beginnings. It doesn't matter which socioeconomical structure you come from. You are going to succeed as long as you work hard and you continue to push for your dreams. And that's what we stood for. But no longer the case, because the government decides that for you. They decide whether you're going to be successful or you're not.
Yeah, even those who are extremely hardworking and deserving of all these opportunities, they're being taken away. For example, nurses and healthcare workers who have done nothing but work,
tireless hours,
tirelessly over the last 2 years. And now they don't get this shot, and now you're fired. How does anybody think that that's okay? I don't understand. That's not what we as Canadians should stand for at all. So I think.
And since we are students and we represent mainly a student organization, why do you think it's important for us to fight at the schools? Why is it important to stand our ground at the universities?
Well, I think it starts with us. And we deserve the right to be educated. Therefore, we can go off into these different careers and these different paths and partake in society and contribute to society in all of our different unique ways. I think that we're the future, right?
Yeah.
We're the next generation. And if we are limiting who can and can't partake in society, I mean, it's got to be detrimental to whatever our future holds for as a society as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we are the future. We are going to be filling up the jobs once we graduate. We are the ones who will run this country basically in the next several decades. And so it's important to be there at the schools and in the medical community as well, so that others have a chance for a future. The kids who are coming up from the schools now and the next generations, they're going to go into the same system. And if we don't beat it now, then it's good. The longer it goes, the harder it is to beat the narrative, because it becomes ingrained in people. And so if we don't beat this at the schools, the next generation will go through the same cycle. They will have to comply in order to go to university. They get through the university, they will have to comply to go to get a job. And so if we go around the system instead of strongly and firmly going against it, and we are not going to be fighting it. Nothing is ever going to happen, because you're going to be always at the mercy of the organization that you plead to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you say, oh, I need an exemption or I need accommodation, you're basically saying, hey, please give me a chance at this, because I don't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
And I am ill, so therefore I want you to accommodate me. Please, dear Lord, you're the best. Right? That's how you come off. That's kind of like, if we were just to put this in simple terms, that's what you're doing in terms of accommodations. And I mean, I understand accommodations. A lot of people are in tough situations, and a lot of people don't know the consequences of it, right? I mean, you have a personal story about this. So why don't you go ahead and share your story with the university that you've gone through?
Sure, yeah.
And we'll go from there.
So I was under the assumption back in the summer, or I guess before the summer, like June, July, that I was going to be able to attend school. It was going to be in person. And then as the weeks and the months, went on, things slowly started to change. First, it was, you need to be vaccinated to go to residence. Then it was, oh, you need to be vaccinated to play school sports and do these other extracurriculars. Then it was, you need to be vaccinated to attend campus, but we'll give you a testing option. Then it was finally first week of September, okay, you need to be vaccinated, period, to come to campus. No testing, no nothing, unless you have an approved exemption. So for me, I mean, I was willing to do anything at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not, but at that point, I was like, I will get tested. I will get an exemption. I will do whatever you need me to do. I just want to go to school. And so I applied for an exemption. It was denied. No surprise there.
No way.
I had a little bit of hope that it would be accepted, but for the most part,
you knew it was going to get denied. Yeah,
I haven't heard anyone at UFT that had one accepted. They were all denied. So I changed all my classes to being online, which, I also signed a lease for an apartment in downtown because I wasn't able to attend residence. And I was under the impression that I was going to be in person and able to attend campus.
That was the whole reason you got.
That's the whole reason I got the place. Lease. And then 3 months after I signed the lease, basically it was pointless because now I can't go to campus and all my classes are online. So I changed everything to online. It was disappointing that I did it because I just wanted to get my credits. And then I think, in November, I started thinking about my second semester and what I was going to do then, because I had some in-person classes that weren't offered online. And I think I reached out to the school a couple times, and I mean, they were useless. They did not help. They didn't.
So, I mean, what happened when you were speaking with the representatives there?
So I called several times, and basically I would tell them my situation, and I'd say, look, I am not getting vaccinated for whatever reasons, and what can I do? I want to be able to continue my education. I want to be at this school. Like, what are my options? Because I had no idea. And basically it was, get vaccinated. Too bad. Like, that's it. Too bad. There's nothing we can do for you. That was it. And finally, after a few months, I got in contact with someone over email who was a bit helpful. She tried her best to help me navigate it a little bit. So when it comes in terms of my second term courses, she told me or advised me to look for alternate online courses at the Mississauga campus. So I did that, and I enrolled in a couple. And then about a month after that, they switched them all to in-person because they were claiming that everything was going back in person. So I was kind of screwed again, and not only could I not attend campus, but now even if I could, I'd have to go all the way to Mississauga.
Well, you got the lease here in Toronto.
Yes. So it was just like a whole lot of uncertainty, a whole lot of like back and forth and inconsistency. It was very difficult for me to plan anything because everything was so uncertain about my education. And now here I am, and I will be enrolled from my classes sometime this month. So that's
Well, that's a lot of fun.
It's been the best first year experience.
Yeah, you could write that in the history books of maybe you can break some Guinness World Record or something. Yeah. With the most money lost and the most fuckery going around. And
for sure.
For first semester, like, welcome to U of T.
It's I've had such a warm welcome at this.
And you feel very good.
It's such a welcoming community and accepting of everyone.
Oh yeah, they're very nice.
But that's pretty much been it.
Okay, so I mean, based on your story and the way they've been changing things for you, right? Oh, you can do this, you can study at Mississauga campus, and then you can do that. Everything kind of happened slowly, and they were making changes very quickly. And you can't really adapt. Like, you got a lease for a year, and that's locked in. You can't just move out in a matter of days. And so, all of this is done for what? It's done for your health. Right?
I mean, that's the whole my health, right? That they're, doing all this.
Yeah, I mean, we did not bring scientific materials for this one, but just to go a little bit into it, just the tip of the iceberg. This entire thing that you went through this whole semester was for your health, right? I mean, according to the authorities, according to the university policy, it's all for your health.
Yes.
Let's switch you to here. Let's switch you to there. Let's do online. Oh, you can be accommodated, and then you cannot be accommodated. So you were not a threat to society come September time, but as soon as they rolled in the policies, now all of a sudden you're a threat to society. You cannot enter a building.
Yes.
So how come you were not a threat to society before that, but now you are?
Yeah, it was.
What's the logic there?
I mean, it to me makes no sense. Why in August did they say they're mandating it for extracurriculars and sports, but it's okay if you're not to come to campus? That's what they said pretty much. And then 3 weeks later, what they get rid of that, and now it's you have to be vaccinated, period. And then they get rid of that again and saying no testing available. And so what really changed? Like, I don't understand within that time,
Okay, so they did all of that, and what happened? COVID is still around. We are on the verge of a lockdown. We have so many restrictions now. We might as well have a lockdown at this point. And looking at the numbers from this year to last year we had no vaccinations at this point, or very little, right?
Yeah.
We just started rolling it out. And what happened? What was the difference here? We're at record cases, and nothing has ever changed, right? We're still doing the same and implementing the same strategies. And we all know what the definition of insanity is. And so here we are. This is where we're at. This is what your story tells. This is what your story tells me, as somebody who would look at it objectively, logically, not from the emotional side of we need to protect, the public. And
even though UFT has, I could be wrong, but I believe it's about a 99% vaccination rate. 99%
of compliance, yeah.
And they're so committed to getting rid of that 1% or getting them to comply. I don't know what a few hundred, if that, students and staff, are they really a threat to those 99% that are vaccinated and protected?
It boggles my mind. I still don't understand it. But anyways, that's enough speculation. I said we're just going to touch the tip of the iceberg.
Just the tip of the iceberg. Go forever.
We're going to need some sources to discuss these things, and just to get down to figuring out what the motivation is for that, because obviously it's not going to be about your health. And so we're going to have to look a little bit deeper into the research before we actually dive in and to discuss that stuff. But in terms of personal stories, I wanted to share one of myself because I did work in a medical clinic throughout the pandemic. And I wanted to discuss privacy, because what we're advocating for is not about whether you took the vaccine or you didn't take the vaccine. I don't care. I mean, I don't give a shit what you do with your health. That's not up to me. Right. So what we're not advocating for, okay, don't do this. Don't take the vaccine. Don't do that. That's completely up to you.
I'm not going to advise anyone to get it or not get it. It's your choice.
It's your choice, exactly. What we advocate is your choice. And that's what CSONT stands for, is that if you want to do this for your health, you should do it, because that's what your decision is. And it's informed, and you've seen both sides of the debate. However, if you are taking it just to get access somewhere, that is the wrong reason to do it.
Yeah.
If you're taking it in order to have basic freedoms, basic rights, like get on a plane and travel and move around and be free.
Don't people see the problem with that? That most people are getting it because they want their rights back? Like that's...
And again, your rights are not given to you by government, and we should not pay ransom to get rights back. Your rights are given to you as soon as you're born. You're born with these rights, and you're entitled to them, and they should never be taken away under any circumstances. And that's what we advocate for. And that's what I wanted to discuss as well, because it's important to distinguish that we're not here to fight the vaccines. We are here to fight the mandates in particular, because they are inherently discriminatory to those who decide not to take them. And since the vaccines, we know they do not provide immunity. First of all, they do not prevent you from transmitting it. And therefore, those two statements are the ones that are using in order to get full-on compliance. However, both statements are false, and they have been proven false, and it's everywhere that it's discussed, right, in the medical literature, that it is false. Now, going back to my personal story, and just to talk about the privacy information, because I worked at a medical clinic for several months during the pandemic. I worked at a doctor's office. It was a family clinic, so we had lots of patients. And what was mind-boggling to me was that that was the time that I was realizing a lot of places started asking for your vaccination papers. Like, get into a restaurant, there's just a random person trying to get private medical information. Whereas I'm sitting there in the front desk of a medical office, and I cannot just hand out, medical information to even another doctor. So let's say we have a new patient that comes into the clinic for walk-in. they have something going on. We need their information from their family doctor. That's different, right? Their family doctor is somewhere else. And they come in because they have a problem and they live nearby. So in order to get that information, we have to go through so much paperwork and so much signing of consent. Like we give a whole stack of paper for the people to sign. Okay, you need to sign here that this is, going to be shared, and that, you're not going to be violating Privacy Act. And so I was just thinking, like, so how come I'm in the medical clinic, I'm sitting there trying to get private medical information from a patient, from one doctor to another doctor, whereas there's this random person here that's going to ask me, waitress, that's going to ask me for private medical information. It does not make sense. Why are these people signing it if for some reason random strangers have access to it? And so
another thing just to touch on that is they're now implementing the QR codes, and I think like apps. Do you upload your proof to an app and it generates the QR code? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think that's how it works now.
So if they're able to do that with this vaccine, what else are they going to start doing that for? Are they going to start doing that for the flu shot now? Are they what?
They might as well.
If they can violate our privacy in terms of this vaccine, what else can they do it for? I mean, it just opens the doors for them to do whatever they want.
Exactly. And that's kind of the problem with what's going on at the universities, is to access any, classroom, any building, you got to show proof of your medical information. And that's what we're against, because we do have privacy here in Canada. It is charted in the Canadian Bill of Rights that you have the right for privacy, you have the right for security. And these things cannot be just taken away because somebody said so. And so another thing to discuss about the universities is how they're handling this situation and how they're implementing it without a discussion, because the universities are there to question narratives.
Yes.
They're there to question two sides. They're there to provide debate. And, you have different philosophical ideas coming together, and they're going to discuss all these amazing things. And that's how they make discoveries, right? Where the evidence is presented from different points of view. And then from there, they can logically and rationally decide what's the best. However, I don't see that happening anymore in the classrooms. I mean, you're a first-year student. And what was your experience like going into the classrooms?
Well, I wasn't actually in because I was online. I was in pre-recorded lectures that I was paying full tuition for, but that's beside the point.
That's something we have to discuss.
In some of these pre-recorded lectures, however, they're very biased. And there is none of this. Well, the fact that it's pre-recorded, I mean, there's no option for discussion anyways. But I feel like it's so one-sided. I mean, I had one professor turn our lecture into an anti-vax rant. Like he went on for a few minutes about anti-vaxxers and this and that. And his opinion, I feel like those, and it was also kind of political as well. Those political opinions of my professor should not be sharing, teaching those to us or expecting us to agree with him. I don't know.
He's in position of authority at that point.
It's not supposed to be biased like that. And then you have thousands of people in this class listening to him and being like, yes, I'm going to agree with you because you're my professor. And I honestly, it really, really upset me. I had that in a few different classes, a few different times in different, they always find a way to throw it in there, even when it's not relevant at all. There was always political, even there was, one of my professors talked about the PPC and how...
Oh, before the election probably, right?
Yeah. We were discussing the election.
As it was coming up.
Talking about the PPC and how they're, extremists, and they tend to put their personal liberties over the greater good of others, and how detrimental that is to this, and that. And just, I mean, it's so clearly biased, and there's no room for discussion or debate, it was very clear what message they were trying to send.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think there's no room for debate? Why? So let's say there's 1,000 students listening to this lecture. The professor obviously not doing his job, because his job is to just teach the material, which does not incorporate teaching you about politics or vaccines. So he's not an expert at that. And he's stating his political beliefs in the position of authority. What's wrong with that? I mean, what's the main issue, and why is it not an open debate between, thousands of people, and 200 of them believe this and 200 believe that? Why isn't there an open debate? But it's like, oh, this is agreed upon and it's cemented and it's over.
Well, I think that the university community as a whole is already pretty one-sided. And I think the professors, they use that to their advantage, and they know that most of the people listening to them probably agree with them because they're vaccinated. They're in the class, so they are most likely vaccinated, right? So I think, but the thing is, the only way to, I guess.
My question really is why the students are not going to speak up.
Well,
why are they afraid of the professor? I mean, the professor is in position of authority, right? So if we assess this, that creates a problem, because now the student feels like he cannot express his opinions, because if he does and they contradict the professor's opinions, then he will give them a bad mark.
That's exactly how I felt. I was in one of my classes and we had to, I think it was a tutorial, it was online though, but it was live, so we were kind of talking, and I was scared to say anything against what my TA was saying. And because another student spoke up about something, and I can't remember what the topic was exactly, but kind of contradicted what the TA was saying. And he shut it down. He basically said, he basically ignored what he said and just like moved on and switched topics. So, for me, it's like, okay, I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to, right?
Well, I don't want to be
my papers, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even think it was about vaccines. It was about something else. But still, it's clearly biased, and then people are scared to say anything because they don't.
It's going to affect their mark. Yeah, it's going to affect their success.
Yes. And I just think there's so many things wrong about that. Like, we're here to learn, and I think learning involves discussion and involves difference of opinion. I'm not saying everyone has to agree with each other, but we need to have all sides of the story heard, all perspectives, all opinions. Otherwise, I mean, what are we? Then we're not actually learning anything.
Yeah. It seems like the university has turned from a place of discussion and a place of discovery and a place of science into a place of promoting government agenda. Indoctrination, yes. And 100%. It's a place for business, really, because, I mean, again, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. I am just speculating here, so fact checkers, you can fuck off. But, I mean, what is their motivation? They are a business, and my speculation is that they are funded to do this. What else would be the motivation behind it? They would be incorporating this because they want to make more money, and it's just become a business rather than upholding the university policies. And we do have documents to go over that at some point in terms of what the university should stand for. And it blatantly describes that you cannot be discriminating even though they are a minority of the population. Yeah. Although they do not follow what they preach, especially now. And so it's a sad case, because you would think that only in universities would be able to question things in times of like this, when all of these opinions are being swayed one way. You would think university would be a place for safe discussion. And that's what I was taught when I was in my first couple of years in university, is that it's a place of discussion. It's a place of free thinking. However, as soon as, I got to the end of my degree, when COVID was going around and we had online classes, it was very similar to what you were saying. There was a lot of discussion about politics. and the professors were expressing their hate for right-wing supportive
Yes.
people, for conservatives. They were just so. I mean, it was the time when the elections were coming up in the States, and they just ripped to shreds like all of the Republicans, and they just fucking hated Trump, and they said all of those nasty things, right?
Actually, I had a professor say the same thing, go on a rant about Trump.
But I'm sure we've had some supporters in the class, but nobody wanted to speak because they don't want to oppose. Oh, I don't want to oppose professor. He's marking my essay
and
tomorrow.
People go but even like peers. I mean, the minute you say anything about any sort of political opinion that doesn't align with theirs, they're so quick to attack character and call you names. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been called a right-wing extremist. I've been called I've been called, anti-vaxxer.
Well, classic.
Yeah. Yes. But and it's just, I mean, they're so quick to attack character like that, and
it is not a healthy environment.
It's not at all. I mean, why are we grouping all these different people into categories? Like, just because you believe one thing doesn't mean you automatically fall into a certain category of people.
Yeah, and that's the sad case, and that's the sad reality about the universities right now, and that's what we stand for. We want that gone. We want a return of universities to what they originally stand for. Those good individuals, those brave people who are there to promote debate and to question narratives, to just ask questions, be like good detectives, good journalists. And that's what universities stand for. And that's what we want to return to. We want to return to scientific debate in the universities and have a safe space where students can express their opinions without penalization of their marks or their grades or their reputation at the schools.
And by only allowing students that comply to be a part of this institution, and to be a part of these discussions, that totally eliminates that
it only perpetuates their narrative more and more. Yeah, exactly.
And that's not how we achieve anything as a society. Innovation starts by questioning
and debate.
Debate, and I think that's so important.
Yes, it's extremely important, and this is why, again, adding to our philosophy about beating this at the schools and fighting at the schools and presenting our opinions at the schools and universities, so that because the other institutions are not going to do it. The other institutions will follow what universities say, because university is a part of research, and that's where reputation, and that's where they get their information, and that's why it's even more crucial to defeat this and to get rid of these mandates at the schools. Because if we lose it there, it's irrelevant where we fight it, because they're the ones presenting evidence. They are the ones presenting facts to people. And people get their knowledge.
Presented any facts.
Yeah, of course. We're going to talk more about that once we have some actual documents to present to people. But again, that's where we are, and that's what we do. That's our purpose here at CSONT. And so if you resemble with our philosophy, and if you would like to contribute your skills and talents toward the organization and towards fighting against these mandates in an active manner that we described previously, by not complying and by continuing to do the things that good citizen would do, because a good citizen is not going to follow rules and laws that are unfair or unjust or discriminatory. A good citizen is going to not comply. A good citizen will ignore them regardless of the consequences they face. And so we encourage everybody who is listening to us, that they have gone through this entire podcast and they've listened to us rant for this long, that if you resemble with the things we talk about, if you believe in personal liberty and you believe in freedom of choice and you believe in abolishing medical tyranny, that we encourage you to reach out to us. We're going to leave the links in the description box below. And thank you for listening to us. And thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a fun debate.
It was.